Well, there are no free agent signings today, as usual, but hey, we got ourselves a trade.
You are Locked On MLB Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to a Locked On MLB, Locked On Cardinals, and Locked On Diamondbacks crossover. Say that 3 times fast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast where we talk about all of Major League Baseball, but also bringing in Cardinals and Diamondbacks. And we are now the #1 sports podcasting network. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan, but please, I'm begging you to call me Sully. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called these days. Or you can get a hold of me on the Instagram. So what is my handle? Sully Baseball Podcast. Or you can go right here on the YouTubes and leave yourself a message. Today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. The wild card round has come and gone, but the divisional round is here. And FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. So visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the National Football League. Well, I could talk about this trade that took place in Major League Baseball between your St. Louis Cardinals and your Arizona Diamondbacks. But you know what? This is one where we got to start to bring in the experts. All the way from somewhere a little east of where I'm sitting in Pasadena, California, overlooking the historic Rose Bowl, the host of Locked On Diamondbacks, it's Daynen Biggs. How are you, Daynen?
Doing good. Thanks for having me.
Well, guess what? This show can't just have 2 hosts. No, we got to go for the trifecta. And here is a fan favorite returning to the show. It's JD Hafron formerly of Locked On Cardinals, now, as you can tell, of Locked On Rebuild.
That's
Congratulations for the St. Louis rebuild. First question, JD. Who's going to have a better record this year, the Cardinals or the St. Louis Browns? Who's going to do better this year?
I'm going to roll with the Cardinals on this one. So
all right. Do you want to think? I think
you're play right. More games. So that's just that's just math right there.
Well, that's what you're right, and you know what? Sometimes you just sometimes have to ask the questions. All right. By the way, there was another trade that happened today. Starting pitcher Ryan Weathers was traded from Miami to the New York Yankees for 4 players, but we will get onto that at another time. The Marlins are getting quantity and building up, but I hope they don't trade too many players away because they're an exciting team. But we do not have room for Locked On Marlins on this. On today's episode, we're talking about the fact that Nolan Arenado, who all last year was rumored to go to everywhere, and probably most likely I thought was going to be the New York Yankees because they didn't have a third baseman. But Nolan Arenado was indeed traded, and he was traded to the Arizona Diamondbacks for a minor leaguer named Jack Martinez, who was an 8th-round draft pick in last year's draft. And the Diamondbacks are going to pay, this is according to Steve Adams on MLB Trade Rumors, the Diamondbacks will pay for 11 million tomatoes for the next 2 years of the 42 owned by Nolan Arenado. So the Cardinals are going to pay him a lot of money to not play for the Cardinals. And essentially, this is the equivalent for the Diamondbacks of signing Nolan Arenado to an 11 million 2-year contract that cost him an 8th-round draft pick. So if you were going to go out to free agency, you'd probably take that deal a couple of times. But I am not the expert on either team. So, Daynen, you're going to go first. What is your initial reaction to the Snakes picking up Nolan Arenado?
I was having a text conversation with my brother, sometimes co-host of the show, about this at the very moment that the news broke, because he said, hey, are we actually going to be signing Nolan Arenado? I don't know. There's been rumors about that all offseason. And then he immediately responded, oh, it's official. It just happened. And I look, and it wasn't even on all the news sites yet. I had to go to X to find it. And my immediate thought was, I hope we are not paying that much for him. because I know his contract is worth a lot, but I also know that, I mean, the Rockies are still paying for part of his contract, if I'm not mistaken. And
Yeah.
so he's getting paid. He'll be getting paid from 3 different teams. And the Diamondbacks, I believe, might be the lowest paying of the 3 teams. And that's the team he's going to be playing on. So that was a huge relief to hear that. And it's also during this offseason with the Ketel Marte trade rumors and with the perceived lack of action going on. A lot of fans here in Arizona are kind of looking at Mike Hazen, general manager, thinking, is he even qualified to do this anymore? We've missed the playoffs last 2 seasons. Like maybe Mike Hazen is not the guy for the job. And, but this kind of solidifies for me, like, no, Mike Hazen knows what he's doing. This was a good deal for a great deal for the Diamondbacks, especially for a team that doesn't have a third baseman. They have Jordan Lawler, who might be a third baseman someday, might be a Major League Baseball player someday. We have Blaze Alexander, but he's more of a utility guy than anything else. So this really kind of fills the hole that we desperately needed, especially now that the Alex Bregman thing isn't going to be happening. And he also offers that veteran position, that veteran role that Alex Bregman would have brought, which in my opinion was the biggest reason to acquire somebody like Alex Bregman. So this is an all-around good deal for the Diamondbacks.
All right. And JD, what is your thought? Because there have been so many Arenado rumors over the last year and a half or so that they finally pulled the trigger. What are your thoughts about this?
We're glad it's over, that the saga that has been just trying to find a place for Nolan to go is over. It's been 15 months that this has happened. He's vetoed trades where they found a willing partner to take him, and he said, "Nope, not gonna do it. Staying here."
Where did he veto?
Houston was the one that was announced.
Oh, that's right.
And then
Yes,
that he also turned down a possible deal to the Angels. I never really saw that, whatever that came from, but multiple people have brought it up online, so I assume that it's happened at some point. But Houston was the big one.
California. The dude's from California. That's how bad people don't want to play for the Angels.
Yeah. But the Houston one, the deal was in place. It was ready to roll. We never saw the details about it, so I don't know if it's better or worse than what this deal was with Arizona as far as like how much money was going in return. I would assume that they were paying a huge chunk as well, because he would have had 3 years that they would have had to take him on. So either way, it's done now, which is a relief, because, the Cardinals are trying to get this whole rebuild thing in motion. And last year when Nolan vetoed that deal to Houston, it stalled everything for another year. Sonny Gray didn't want to leave. Then Wilson Contreras didn't want to leave. Anybody who had a no trade clause wouldn't leave. They didn't want to go. And so we just had to kind of sit there in purgatory waiting for them to say, okay, we'll leave. Finally, this offseason, whatever it is that Chaim Bloom told them, and maybe they didn't believe John Mozeliak before that. They're like, hey, we're rebuilding. Like, this doesn't really make a whole lot of sense for you guys to stick around if you want to win more in a different spot. And they all stuck around for another year. And finally, this offseason, you saw Sonny go first, then Wilson. Now it's Arenado. Those were the big 3 veterans who still had no trade clauses, with a big chunk of money still on the payroll that they have now moved on from. So I think Cardinal fans are sad because they like Nolan Arenado. This isn't something that he did wrong. It's not an issue with him personally. He didn't dislike the Cardinals. He didn't dislike St. Louis. It wasn't that. It's just a split where, hey, we're going in this direction. You deserve to go in a different direction. We found you a place. Are you cool with that? And Arizona ended up being the spot that made the most sense for him.
Well, look, when we come back, I want to talk about that landing spot because, well, they may not get the most attention, but very quietly, the Arizona Diamondbacks have put together, say it with me, one of the best infields in baseball.
The division round is here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action, because right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users are going to get what we call a profit boost pack. It's waiting for you inside the app. Every game day, you're going to see this pack. It's going to be loaded with multiple profit boosts that you can apply to the bets that you want to use them on. Whichever ones you like the most, you put this towards. Now, we've got the division round coming up. Saturday's games, you got Bills at Broncos, Niners at Seahawks, Sunday, Texans at Patriots, Rams at the Bears. What you're going to do on both of those days, open up your profit boost pack first thing on game day, see what boost you want to play. The boost will let you lean into your game day instincts. So whether you're backing momentum, you like the defense that's going on, perhaps quarterback play is huge. Coaching, if you can trust any coaches these days, you can go that way as well. Every play just feels bigger, and the boosts make your bets feel that way too. So make your picks, then apply your profit boost to go after even bigger payouts while the playoffs are rolling on there. So visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day.
Hey, thanks so much for making Locked On MLB, or maybe Locked On Diamondbacks, or maybe Locked On Cardinals your first listen of the day, or your second, or maybe your third. Now, here's what I need you to do, and listen to me, and listen to me well. You've helped us become the #1 sports podcast network. But if you haven't already, go check out the new Everydayer Club. You get ad-free audio of Locked On MLB. It's similar to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And now we've got the Everydayer Club on Discord. I'm on there a bunch. You get to hear my wisdom or, just jackassery on there. And you get to interact with us, especially when we start getting into the regular season. There's going to be a lot of interactions there. So check us out at LockedOnMLB.supercast.com. Before we get going, I do want to talk about the trivia question. And I'm going to tie it into what we're going to talk about here. What Atlanta Braves outfielder led the National League in WAR in 1989? I talked about it was the birthday of Kevin Mitchell, who won the MVP, but a former Braves outfielder who was a guest on my old podcast led the National League in WAR. I got a bunch of people when I gave that clue guessed Dale Murphy, who was still a star on that Braves team, who was a guest on this show, but it wasn't him. It was, and where is it? Here we go. Show it, please. Thank you. Joshua Ankeel 7643. Lonnie Smith. Lonnie Smith led the league in on-base percentage. That's right. Former World Series champion. Wow. Oh, by the way, let's read closely that last thing he said. Sully is the GOAT and has my full support in his campaign to be the new commissioner. All right,
you wrote that, Sully. He did.
No. You, Sully,
there it is.
Vote for Sully, baseball commissioner for a change. There you go. We need it. There you go. We got to go through this. Okay. Lonnie Smith very sneakily led the league in WAR back in 1989. Let's fast forward to 2025. Geraldo Perdomo led the league in WAR this year. Did a double take on that when I saw that. I knew he was a terrific player, but he does a little bit of everything. He's got power, he's got speed, hit for a high average, good OPS, terrific shortstop, and the fact that they're keeping Ketel Marte, which I'm glad they're doing that because he is a Diamondback. He was a Diamondback postseason hero when they went to the World Series just a couple of years ago. And now, look at Arenado, who led the league in WAR a few years ago, is no longer the MVP, but you're not asking him to be the MVP. You're asking him to be really good and to be a reliable veteran on a team with players like Marte, Perdomo, Corbin Carroll, and whatnot. Tell me a little bit about your thoughts about how he fits in with his team and how let's face it, we all knew he was plan B. They wanted Bregman, but this is a pretty good and inexpensive plan B to have if you couldn't land Bregman.
I wouldn't call him a plan B. And here's why. Quick summary. The Diamondbacks were never even close to trading Ketel Marte. That whole story was blown way out of proportion. And which is fine. It's good. I mean, good negotiating, good marketing. Everybody's talking about, or a lot more people are talking about the Diamondbacks because of it. But it was the sort of thing, and Mike Hazen mentioned this after the fact. He's like, we talked to maybe 4 teams and none of them came even remotely close. And they probably hung up the phone and went, man, Mike Hazen's an idiot. Why would he think we would give up that? And he's like, yeah, we wouldn't. We had no intention of getting rid of him, but we would have been stupid not to listen to offers.
And by the way, let me just jump in for 1 second. That's part of a GM's job. Part of a GM's job is to listen to offers. And if someone said, we're going to give you A, B, C, and D, and go, oh my God, that's actually pretty, you have to take those calls. It's not like they were saying, give us anything. We're desperate.
Exactly. And that's what I think that's how a lot of people are reading it is, oh, well, he's trouble in the clubhouse, or, oh, they're paying him $15 million a year. Oh man, they're desperate to get rid of him. That was never, ever the case. But in a season off season where the Diamondbacks are lacking in pitching as much as they are, it was, okay, listen, we need a whole haul of pitchers. So if you want to give us a bunch of pitchers, like a team like the Red Sox, a lot of depth in their pitching. So I imagine that was one of the teams said, hey, listen, if you really want Ketel Marte, which a lot of teams really wanted him, if you give us this, then sure, we can make a deal. But I was very skeptical that was ever going to happen. And apparently I was right, because there was nothing even came close. So the Alex Bregman thing, though, that was more of if we do trade Ketel Marte, Alex Bregman would be a good piece to bring in to kind of bring our offense back up. I mean, he's not as good offensively as Ketel Marte is, but he's pretty good. And so that would have been that. But Alex Bregman, the chances of us bringing Alex Bregman on were so slim because it completely relied on trading Ketel Marte, which wasn't going to happen. So I don't believe that was ever really on the table. And with Nolan Arenado, I mean, we've been hearing the whole offseason that they were talking and that there was something going on. And so this doesn't come as a big surprise to me, though it does make perfect sense that they waited until after Bregman was shipped off to somewhere else and Marte was definitely staying here. So it makes sense that it didn't happen before then. But as far as to answer your question, sorry, that's a big roundabout way of getting to the answer. I think he fits in great. He kind of fills that Suarez role, the Eugenio Suarez role of who was here before. I don't expect him to hit quite as many home runs unless we're going to see, 2022 Nolan Arenado back out there. But again, he's only 2 years removed from being an all-star. So it's not like he's out of everything, and a lot of old players come to Arizona to get a second wind. So I'm definitely not counting him out there. But again, yeah, we're not looking for somebody to be an all-star, superstar, greatest of all time guy. We just need somebody who can be really good. And that's exactly what he can be.
By the way, there's something to remember. This was, I mean, I know enough to remind you this, but the Diamondbacks won the pennant in 2023. And then the next year they had a better record and they tied both Atlanta and the New York Mets. But because of that, free for all on the final, the day after the final day of the season, they were squeezed out of the postseason. They won, I believe they won 87 games that year. And it was 86 or 87 games. Either way, it was more than they won when they won the pennant. Yeah. And just think like one game in May, one game in early June goes this way instead of that, then the Diamondbacks are in the playoffs back-to-back years. Last year, they missed the postseason. But it was really like they had a bad May, they had bad July. And I should say too,
they only missed the postseason by 3 games this time.
Right.
So they missed it by 1 game in 24, 3 games in 25.
Right.
They've been as good as they've always been. It's just these last 2 years.
They had 2 rotten months they had 2 rotten months last year. And if they just had 1 rotten month, if they just finished 500 in either May or July. And also I looked up in 1-run games last year, they were 21-28. And in extra inning games, they were 7-12. So if they go 500 in either one of those categories, not even winning, like just 500, they're in the playoffs again. So
they also led the league in blown saves with 29 blown saves. Had they just been one of the worst instead of the worst, they also would have made the playoffs.
47 blown leads. Yep, 47 blown leads last year. So and they had injuries to their pitching staff. They acquired Burns, and Burns barely pitched only basically half a season. They still have Fott, who didn't have a good year last year, but if he turns it around, he's still young. If Ryan Nelson, there's people who are good on that team who could have an improvement, kind of like Toronto, who had, were a playoff team, missed the playoffs, last place. And a lot of the players who had a rotten 2024 turned it around and had a good, obviously they were a centimeter away from winning the World Series. If you have a big, I was going to say a rebound year from Corbin Carroll. The guy slugged .540 and led the league in triples and did 31 home runs. And it was a 30-30 guy. So, there are guys like, and they get more solid years from some of the players. The window of opportunity for them they're not going to beat Los Angeles. But what if San Diego regresses? What if Philadelphia regresses? What if you got another lousy season from Atlanta? The opportunity for them to sneak in as one of the playoff teams. It's not even sneaking in. It's just, have stability. Have stability in that bullpen and do your best.
Exactly. The thing with the Diamondbacks, they have one of the best offenses in the entire major league. Right. They had 3 silver sluggers this year. Their infield, especially now with the addition of Arenado, if we could get a first baseman who can, slug the ball a little bit, we'd have.
I was just gonna say.
Thank you. Oh my gosh! Thank you very much. Yes. We can, if we can wisen up and get Paul Goldschmidt back. I say all the time, we'll make our money back on him in jersey sales alone. Like, do you know how many jerseys you would sell?
It's a 1-year deal. You signed a 1-year deal. Just sign a 1-year deal.
That's all you need to do. Anyway, if you have that, you have Corbin Carroll, and you have a bunch of young guys who didn't perform super well last year, like Jordan Lawler, Blaze Alexander, who I expect a big progression from both of them this season, among others. You have Gabriel Moreno at catcher, who did great when he was healthy. Right. And so if he can just stay healthy, well, then our offense is off the charts great. It's right up there with the Dodgers and with other teams like that. If our pitching can just be average, even a little below average, if it could just be not like the worst, then I believe we're competing not for a playoff spot, but for a division spot, if we can have just an average pitching. And so this first half of this next season is going to be tough because 3 of our best pitchers are recovering from Tommy John surgery. So after the All-Star break, when they do return, hopefully they return pretty, at least semi close to how they were before, then we should be all right. But it's that first half of the season that we really need to add depth to, and then again, hope nobody else gets hurt, which is going to happen. But so that's what this offseason is really about.
Well, the Diamondbacks have confidence that 2026 will be a good one. For the other side of the coin, when we come back, we'll talk about the Cardinals. All right, we're talking about the Nolan Arenado trade with Daynen Biggs is all happy. He got himself a little Nolan Arenado. And now we got JD Hafron, who is from Locked On Rebuild. Before I give you the reign for the rest of the show here, JD, I have to say, I think that from my point of view, I think the Cardinals are doing the right thing. You can't be in that middle ground the way that the Phillies were between the time they won the World Series and the time they acquired Bryce Harper. They're in that neutral zone of, we're not good enough to win, but we don't want to give up our stars. And then the wishy-washy. You got to, at one point, got to say, we got to pull the ripcord and rebuild this thing. And I know fan base like the Cardinals are not fans of rebuilding, but I'm sure what they would love is a rebuilt team. And in order to do that, you got to at some point start the process. And I know it's heartbreaking because in 2022, it looked like this team was going to be contending for the foreseeable future. But, you got to do what you got to do. JD, what are your thoughts on this?
Absolutely agree. That was one of the most frustrating things about the front office for the Cardinals the last few years is that they wouldn't pick a lane, Sully. They wouldn't go one way or the other. They wouldn't spend enough to compete with the guys to be a playoff contender. You go get Sonny Gray and you follow it up with Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson, and that's just not going to cut it. You're again sitting right around that 500 mark, and it's not enough. It's just not. And when they realized that this was going to have to be torn down, that things were not going to progress with this group, even though these people seemed to be nice pieces for other teams, the Cardinals' real problem was the farm system. They weren't churning out the guys that they used to do to become compatible with these star players that they had already. And then you had the regression of Goldie and Arenado a little quicker than I thought they think that was going to happen. They thought that by this point, Nato maybe would start regressing now instead of 2 years ago, and
Right.
he hasn't been the guy that they needed to be that middle of the order guy, which is why he fits in Arizona really, really well. In the offseason when this started, I was talking about teams that I feel like he would be good with. To be a team like a Boston or a team like Philly. And then I brought up Arizona as well. Teams where he didn't have to carry the load, where he wasn't the main cog of the offense the way he has had to be in St. Louis over the last couple seasons. He's just not that dude right now. But if you stick him into a lineup like Arizona, where he's batting 6th or 7th, and that's kind of his role, and he's not expected to be the pressure guy, I think he can thrive. I still think there's plenty of good stuff inside Nolan Arenado to be a good player at this level. In fact, his numbers the first half of last season were actually pretty good, and then the injuries happened and it knocked him off course, and he didn't play much in the second half. But he was on his way to having 20 plus home runs, 80 plus RBIs last year. The glove is not as good as it used to be, where he's platinum glove, but he's still awesome over at third base. Don't let it fool you. Don't let the age fool you. He is still extremely good. We learned the hard way this year that when he wasn't in the lineup and we saw other people playing third base, we're like, oh, that's what it looks like when it's not Nolan Arenado. Oh gosh. So, but you guys are right. It was time to move on. They wanted to start this last year. It didn't happen. Now with Chaim Bloom in charge, you're seeing a direction. He's being much more vocal with the fan base about, hey, this is what we're going to do. We're going after pitchers. All right. That's what we got to really replenish in this organization. And it's going to cost us some of these big name guys to do it. We are going to eat some money. We know that. We're going to take it on the chin for this. We understand that. But long-term goal, they are saving money, even though they're spending, over $50 million to pay those 3 guys to not play for them this year. They're not paying for them the following year, though, where like they're off the books and stuff. So it's done. And that's going to help them kickstart this rebuild into something that hopefully fans will see the fruits of coming up in 2027, 2028, which is when they expect the winning window to kind of open up again with a lot of the prospects and a lot of the guys they've brought in.
To me, last summer when they traded Ryan Helsley to the Mets was the moment that I thought, like, okay, they're doing this. They're starting to pull the ripcord a little bit here, and not that was necessarily a blockbuster, but they got. When you have a trade like that, I liked that they got like 3 or 4 guys back from the Mets, and the reason why I like trades like that is that sometimes when you rebuild, you got to get quantity as well. I remember when the Cubs and the Astros went through their rebuild in the early 2010s. They were trading everything that wasn't nailed down and trying to get 3 or 4 players in each trade. If for no other reason, just flush your farm system. You've had some dud drafts. You had some dud signings. Just get some players in our system, and you don't even know what the Rubik's Cube is going to be. This player who may not have been a great prospect could match up with this coach who opens up something. Come on. You've blown some drafts. You've blown some instances. So let's just flush the farm system with players and see what you got. And by the way, that trade turned out to be a disaster for the Mets. Even if none of those players turn out to be the second coming of David Wright or Jose Reyes, it still stunk because he was a disaster and no small part of why they missed the playoffs altogether. But, Cardinal fans we've always, people praise the Cardinal fans being so smart and everything like that. There have been times where they've had some regression. And that regression, when it's done right, can lead to the great run they had in the 80s, but then that ended. They had a great run that lasted all the way through the 2000s, right up until 2014 or 2015. And they had a little regression. They came back. They made the NLCS a couple of times, but they couldn't quite get over the hump. And everyone thought Arenado and Goldschmidt were going to be the things that get them over the hump. And it just didn't work. And sometimes the smartest thing you could do is to say, it just didn't work.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. The
Stop
5 years
making Avatar films. Sorry.
Yeah. The 5 years with Arenado, I'm getting ready to an episode that I'm going to be putting out is whether or not was the 5 years with Arenado a failure. Is it a failure with what they did while he was here? And I'll go more in depth into that in that episode. But, 3 winning seasons, but no playoff wins, Sully. And that's ultimately what it comes down to is that they never, as you said, got over the hump. And part of that, and I'm not blaming Arenado for this at all.
No, he was wonderful.
He was wonderful. It's the people that neglected the farm system, that there was nothing to bring up to give them help. And the guys that they thought might be good, the Nolan Gormans, the Jordan Walkers, the Dylan Carlsons, none of them have panned out so far. Jack Flaherty was supposed to be a big deal. That didn't pan out for them at all. So as soon as that era ended in 2022, when, Yachty and Albert said goodbye and you got what was left over of Waino's body for 2023, they just didn't have anything to add to them to take over those roles. And it really became apparent that, okay, something's wrong within your own system. It had rotted from the inside. They weren't taking care of, teaching prospects well. They weren't drafting well as far as like in other areas. Like it just, there was no pitching whatsoever, which is why you're seeing Chaim Bloom go out. He's added 16 arms to bring into this organization. That's how empty the cupboard was for the Cardinals. So, and we all know that, arms pitching in this arms race that we call Major League Baseball, it's a very good currency to have, as many arms as you can get your hands on. And that's what they're going for right now. And they're hoping that they'll be able to rebuild as far as the infield with guys like JJ Weatherholt, their top prospect. They're hoping Gorman will actually show up this year, but you've got a Mason Wynn. You're pulling your silver slugger, Alec Burleson, out of the outfield and making him your everyday first baseman in place of Wilson Contreras. So there are pieces, but 2026, it's not going to be a pretty one. I don't think it's going to be 100-loss type of team. I think there's too much talent there for that, but it isn't going to be pretty. Let's be honest.
And another thing that didn't help matters, and we'll wrap up after this, is you got to see Adolis Garcia be a World Series hero. Sorry, Dan, close your ears, but he got to be a World Series hero. Randy Arozarena is an ALCS MVP. Alcantara wins the Cy Young Award. Zach Gallen pitched really well. All of them were Cardinal farmhands.
Yeah.
That when you start saying the cupboard is bare, but you see some of these other players shining in October while the Cardinals are reading Bazooka Joe comics at home, that's not a good look. For the team. So
they made a lot of bad deals, and they put their money on players, and they chose poorly. Let's put it that way. From the Indiana Jones movie, they chose poorly with certain players, and you see what the repercussions of that are now. But I am happy for Arizona and Nolan Arenado. Yep. I think it's a great fit for you guys, Daynen. I think you guys are going to love Nolan. He's going to be tormenting the Rockies in the division again, which is going to be super fun for you guys. My only hope for him is he stays healthy for you. Last year, it was just a nagging back injury that was bothering him. I hope he's able to get over that. Tell your coaching staff to tell him to sit down from time to time. He doesn't need to play 162 games anymore. Get 145. Get Goldie, like me and Sully said. You guys are going to love him to be on there with him. That'll be fun. They're best friends. And I think you guys will have something coming up this year because you guys are a fun and exciting team in Arizona. Get that pitching staff healthy, and I think you guys are going to be all right. But good move for you guys. Not spending a lot of money made a lot of sense.
All right. 30 seconds. Last thoughts. Daynen Biggs from Locked On Diamondbacks.
I'm super stoked to see how this is going to go. I think this is exactly what the Diamondbacks needed. I'm glad they didn't go a route so crazy as to trade Ketel Marte and then sign Alex Bregman. That would have been as interesting as that would have been. I'm glad that's not the way that we're going. And and I think that this is going to be a really good fit. And I'm also really happy for the Cardinals, although it sounds a little weird, but I'm glad that they're making the right steps for a rebuild, and I think this will be really good for them as well.
All right. Well, thanks so much for tuning in to this Locked On MLB crossover. Hopefully, we're going to have some shows we can talk about signing players. But follow us at we're at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter, or whatever it's called these days. Daynen, where's your show at?
Locked On Diamondbacks, every platform you can find.
And JD.
At LO_Cardinals, at JD Sports Radio on X, and then, of course, wherever you get your podcasts.
And never miss an episode of the Everydayers Club. It's built for you, ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to, say it with me, LockedOnMLB.supercast.com. For those of you in video, we'll send you the first ever 24/7 national Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. And let's quickly do the trivia question. We're running a little late on time. What former St. Louis Cardinal was credited with the first postseason victory in Diamondbacks history? There you go. I made it a Cardinal and a Diamondback question. So there you go. Talking about the Nolan Arenado trade or salary dump or rebuild, whatever you want to call it, with Daynen Biggs of Locked On Diamondbacks and JD Hafron of Locked On Cardinals. This has been a Locked On Diamondbacks Cardinals MLB crossover. I am yours, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.